So for the past 8 years, Peter and I have been producing the Sports and Fitness Tech Conference here at CES. So we're very familiar with wearables of healthcare, wearables of fitness, wearables of sports, athletes, connected coaching, all of that. However, wearables is actually much more than just a fitness tracker or a smartwatch. And this next panel is going to talk a little bit about other possibilities for wearables. And so I brought in my good friend, Christian Stammel, who some of you may know heads Wearable Technologies Group and Navispace. And Christian has been around wearables about 18 years. And we're very excited to have him here with our next panel. So please join me in welcoming Christian Stammel.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure to be here in Las Vegas at the CES and to moderate that panel, because this panel is really important for us, for the market. We are not only talking about consumer products, we are really talking about consumer products which could be used perhaps in the business purpose, in the industrial application field. And therefore I have a very nice panel together. At first I will welcome now Nils Berger. He is the CEO and co-owner of Viewpointsystem from Austria. Please welcome Nils Berger on the stage. I think you should take this place here on the right. Then I will want to welcome DeCosta. He's a founding partner of Rollts. Please welcome on the stage. And last but not least, I want to welcome Kothari. He is a project lead of Google Glass. Jay, please welcome on the stage. So, before I want to start the panel discussion, I want to show you some figures about the actual market, what is happening in the market, and how we as a Wearable Technologies group understand the market. And at least we are talking about putting wearables to work. This is a very nice frame because it's really the topic that we will see a lot of wearables which will be used in safety, security applications, for workers, but also to drive efficiency in the manufacturing area, or here on a big manufacturing plant. You could use augmentation systems to augment your daily job in the work. But it's important, we have to talk about connected devices. It doesn't make sense to work with a wearable which is just giving you an information about your actual behavior, about your actual activity. It has to be connected to the cloud, it has to be connected to AI systems. And even perhaps in the future, 80% of the whole value of a wearable system will come from the cloud and from the AI. The hardware is just a piece which is sensing or giving you additional information. And this is very important for the overall view if we talk about now the application field of using wearables in industrial applications. The market is huge, the market is ramping up. We are always putting together these figures from the different research groups worldwide and put it in a way where we believe this is the real wearable market. Every kind of sensor or wearable electronic device you can wear close to the body, on the body, or even in the body. And here you see, for example, the smartwatch market is still growing, but another area, smart patches, could be also used, for example, for industrial applications, for monitoring health, and so on. And what I found up front to that conference was a study. And this is very important. This study is about occupational safety and security, and it was dedicated for wearables. It was made by the American Society of Safety and Professionals, and it was launched end of December. And what you could see here is, in the field of manufacturing, for example, more than 50% are owning already a wearable device. And what's more important is 54% are willing to wear that wearable to make the work more safe, or to be more safe in the daily business. And this is the same in construction, the same in oil and energy, which are the areas where the most security and safety problems are. And what is the biggest complaint, the biggest risk the people see is privacy and the acceptance of the unions. And this is really one of the deal breaker we saw in the last 15 years if we were talking about bringing technologies in the workforce place. But this is exactly what we want also to discuss today, how we could bring benefits with wearables in the industrial process, and perhaps also to make everyday's work more safe. And though I will start now directly with my questions, and at first with an introduction of each. So perhaps, Nils, could you start with your introduction about what you are doing, what is your company doing, where you are coming from?
Perfect, thanks very much. Hello everybody. Viewpointsystem is based in Austria, Vienna, so it's a bit not quite a logic part to be if you're in a deep tech industry. We have in our DNA roughly 20 years of human viewing behavior research. And in a nutshell, what we did, we first of all digitized the human viewing behavior with our in-market solution. We were a bit under the radar because we waited to launch the VPS 19. That's happening since yesterday. I will refer to that a bit later. So what we can do, we understand what the human being is capable of digesting when he's having a visual input. And that's one of the things where we believe that the most intuitive human-machine interface between the digital world and the human being will be the eyes. And that's exactly what we're working on. So we came from eye tracking, now we do eye hyper tracking because we also created a perception tracker. So we do not only know what you're looking at, but also if you're really interested in that part in the visual scenery in front of you. And what we have done now is we added a mixed reality click-on. So if you want, you add now display technology to it, and then you interact with your eyes. So the whole interaction takes place not with voice or hands or fingers, you do it with your eyes, and not only consciously, but also to a certain extent already subconscious triggers we are catching here. And that's basically what our system is, that's the VPS 19. So we are manufacturing the stuff ourselves, we are a hardware company. We believe that eye tracking, eye hyper tracking does not work only on a software base. So we took the hard way. We said, okay, there is so much stuff we need on a hardware level that is not existing, so then we have to do it on our own. Nonetheless, we have 4 to 5 huge industry partners that gave us tremendous support on the processing unit, on the display unit, so we couldn't do that on our own. So we are doing daily make or buy decisions, and basically eye tracking, you know, you bought an eye tracking company a few years ago, Apple did, and Facebook did. We were under the radar so far, and now we are surfacing. We already have more than 100 customers, from 400,000 people, organizations, corporates, down to 70 people, manufacturing equipment companies, and they are already working with our existing solution. And that's how we designed the new system. It's a B2B system. It's not focused at the consumer market at all, and we developed it with 7 beta customers to make sure that we really meet their expectations.
Nils, thank you so much. Seen, you have also already hundreds of customers, right?
We have a few hundred
could you
customers.
tell us about your company and what your company is doing?
Okay, so Rollts Digital Solutions is just pretty much voice recognition as well as communication amongst team members. So breaking teams into smaller groups, larger teams into groups, providing relevant information to the right person, right place at the right time instantly with the push of a button. So I'm wearing the device now. It's called the Rollts Domino Digital Communicator. Has 50 channels, 999 groups. So it allows you endless numbers of people that can communicate at one time. Our current customers, last month we installed in our first hospital in Utah State. So it's Utah State Hospital. There's 7 buildings. There are 330 people currently using the device, broken up into 12 groups of clinicians, psychiatric technicians that are responsible for small groups of people. They travel the campus. They can communicate back to their building as well as in any other building throughout the campus. So, that being said, it's hands-free. It is push to talk, and I'll let you take it from here.
Okay. I have also questions for you.
I know you do.
So, Jay, what about Google Glass? I mean, we don't have to introduce Google, but perhaps what you are doing at the moment, what the actual status of your products.
Yeah, so I lead the Glass program. We've created a hands-free wearable device that can give you a heads-up display, can give you the content that you want so that you can interact with that content. You can have it when you need it. You can get a camera that will allow you to communicate what you are seeing to someone else, that if you need help. But the ultimate goal for us was to take the seeds of the original Glass Explorer program and find applications in the enterprise. And so we focused on manufacturing, logistics, field service, and healthcare in places where people need to use their hands, and using their hands to engage with a computing device is a distraction from their core business. So by doing that, we find ways to give manufacturing, for example, employees who are building something, efficiencies of 30 to 50% by not having to context switch and find the content that they need.
But Jay, we're coming now directly to the questions. What is the main difference, let's say, between the first version of Google Glass we saw in April 2012? It's already more than 5 years ago.
Yeah.
More than 5 years.
Yeah. So the first version of Glass, which was the Explorer edition, was predominantly created as a consumer-focused device. From the hardware aspect of it, we had a variety of colors, a variety of frames. From an application perspective, we were looking for new applications for it, actually. We had built software from Twitter to our own platform to Strava. So we had all these kinds of applications built for the very first generation of it. So it was a heavily consumer-focused device. On the development side for it, we had actually built our own platform for interacting with it, which was called the Mirror API, and it was a unique way of us engaging with it. So when we shifted to the enterprise program, we had engaged with a lot of corporate enterprises. Boeing is one that we've talked about a lot. They were an early customer of ours, and we took their requirements and made a new device from the ground up that was far more durable, supported waterproofing, we had safety shields, it was foldable, the battery life was longer, the connection for a physical external battery, we created that with a magnetic connector. So we changed the hardware. And then we changed our software. We went to something called the GDK, which allows for direct development based on Android for the device itself. And then it had glass-specific things. We also changed our software partnership model. So we don't deliver any software. We have a set of partners, software development partners, who build industry-specific solutions for glass. And now we're actually we've shared with certain partners and customers our yet next generation, our third generation of glass, which is not quite public yet, but that is actually focusing on straight Android development. So it's going to leverage Android open source projects, so no Google dependencies whatsoever, which was a big thing that customers asked for in the previous version. So we just wanted to make a device that partners could develop off of. We put more durability into the device. We have a series of frames that are coming out for it that are focused on safety.
Even different frames, okay. Even
different frames. So we have safety frames that are built in with the leading eyewear manufacturer. So we've focused largely from version to what the customer requirements were, and going from a very consumer-focused one to an enterprise durable needed one. And then in the most recent one that customers are starting to get now, we're focusing on things like computer vision and machine learning directly embedded into the hardware, so hardware accelerated ways of doing these kinds of things. So responding to that need that most enterprise customers are coming to.
If I'm now a developer, could I just use my Android Wear development I did, or do I have to adapt it in a way?
So it is a different form factor. The display is a different size, but it is Android. So you will be able to leverage some of the assets that you've already put together in a very, very efficient way.
Okay.
And that's a big thing for us going forward, is to leverage the developers out there and the skill set that they have to make a product, because we're just one part of a larger product for our software partners, and make it a lot easier for them to develop again. So it is standard Android going forward.
And could you tell us a bit about applications? I mean, applications we were dreaming about 10 years ago or 7 years ago are perhaps now the same, but they are now realistic, right? So what is your favorite application you would tell us, which is now able with this new hardware, which is a bit more ruggedized, with a bit durability?
Yeah.
So what would be the favorite one, or the major two you want to tell us?
There's actually a handful of ones that I'm a big fan of, but to answer the first part of your question, we focus in manufacturing, logistics, field service, healthcare. We've historically done that for the last several years, and things like standard operating procedures are very, very common in the manufacturing space. the ability to communicate with an expert. So internally we call it phone a friend or phone an expert. So if I'm working on something, if I'm a mechanic, for example, and I've only worked on American cars, and now a Japanese car shows up, I'm an expert. I know how to use the tools, I know how to do an oil change, but there might be some nuances, and I can phone a guy who knows it, and he can see my perspective, and he can help me out. That happens a lot with field service kind of work. Similarly, healthcare, I can engage with patients. If I'm a physician wearing this, I don't need to be doing medical records directly the whole time. But now we're seeing a new class of software applications that our partners are coming up with. Some of those are in training. So you can actually do real-time training. A really relatable one that I like is making a pizza. We have a large pizza company, and it's really fascinating. Fast food has 50% turnover in staff every 6 months. So training, real-time training is incredibly important. So using computer vision, they can actually train somebody within 1 day instead of 5 days, so that all the inventory and all the training material, i.e. food, doesn't get wasted, and it's sellable inventory. So it actually has a very strong bottom line.
I never thought about that solution. I mean, putting the tomato at the right place on the pizza.
Yeah, make sure that you've got the right distribution. You don't want just cheese lopped on one side, right?
Okay.
And then we have these interesting circular ones in terms of training of documenting best practices. So we have a large auto manufacturer. They have a series of standard operating procedures for manufacturing different parts of their cars. And we found that what they would do is they would run the standard operating procedure, use the camera on the device to document the work that was done and validate that that work was done correctly. That's a real improvement. Right then it's documented, later than going to the next step. In real time, the person who's making it is told, are you doing the right work? They're actually now using in full circle that if somebody's doing something that violates standard operating procedure, it gets documented and gets reviewed. Because often what people do is they find interesting shortcuts in the way that people do things who are actually doing it, evolve it. So, you know, I've written the standard operating procedure, you're the guy who's actually assembling it, but you found neat tricks. It comes back and it becomes the new norm. And so that mentality is really important because we've got, in different industries, you've got an aging workforce, and institutional knowledge leaves when staff leaves. But now you're very quickly finding the best employees and having them document it, turn it into immediate content, and new people are trained with it. So it comes full circle that you find the best ways to do it, and you get people trained on the latest and the greatest very quickly.
Continuous learning and training system. Okay, okay. I mean, there we are hitting a bit the area where you're also active, right, Nils? I mean, Viewpointsystem launched now not the first, but now the VPS 19 at the CES. What is now so very revolutionary on your new product, and why is it driving efficiency and also industrial applications?
We came from the human being and not from the technology.
Okay.
Understanding what a human being is capable of processing led us in designing something that fits his demands. And then there are some important stuff like EN 166 safety rating, only 43 grams light, you can wear it all day, you don't need infrastructure, you just need Wi-Fi access, and so on and so on. And we just created an approach where you can take several steps towards the MR solution you want to make. We're API driven, we're Linux based, so it's an open platform. We want to have partners, customers developing their own apps. And first of all, we started already with B2B. So right from the beginning, we understood what our manufacturing clients or healthcare or safety/security or mobility clients wanted to have. And then basically we just said, okay, what does make sense? Because I think that was one of the major problems, not challenge, that so high expectations were raised by the industry, what you can do, and no one ever could live up to it, basically. I'm not saying we are, because the technology really to have it as we would like to have it is not yet ready. It's connectivity, it's display contrast, it's a CPU, like consumption size, battery. As long as we don't have batteries that fit in a frame and give us 8 to 14 hours lifespan, it's not a true, B2B application, one shift, 8 hours, So at least you have to cover 8 hours. So that's what we did. We have a hot swap battery exchange and so on. So that we made sure that we meet the demands of the industries. But having said so, I think you never ever should forget that a human being is carrying these glasses and he has to feel comfortable with it and it needs to be socially acceptable. And if you look like an alien, you won't get the acceptance out there. People just won't wear it because they feel awkward. Let's put it that way. And that's something where we have chosen to take a different approach and just using the eyes as a human-machine interface. And then let's see where the readiness of technology will be in 1, 2, or 3 years. And if the displays come up with new features, we just adapt the display part and attach it to our glasses. And that's why we came purely B2B driven and putting them at work in hard, harsh environments. And the last thing, which is extremely important, that's it has to work under all conditions, changing light conditions. That's one of the major disadvantages. So our system does work inside, outside, from full bright conditions into going into somber, dark areas. And that's then people will use it, but if you have to control the lighting conditions, it's not really, it limits the freedom where you can operate.
And especially this eye tracking topic, I mean, this is one of the core USPs you have, right, from the knowledge. Could you tell us in 2 sentences a bit more about that?
Basically, we have an eye tracking solution with a worldwide IP that is not interfered with stray light. Usually you have reflections on your eye, and by that you determine the middle of your eye, and then you calculate the gaze vectors and where they intersect, then you kind of have the focal point of the wear. And that's where we started, because our system is not sensitive to changing light conditions. And that gave us the opportunity to come up with something that is doable and does work inside and outside. And now we just go, everything really evolves about eye tracking, also as eyes as the most intuitive interface between digital content, visual content, and the human being. And the next thing, we take it now with what technology will bring and come up with. If display changes, if connectivity is there, we can integrate. As I said, Linux-based, we are ready to grow with our customers, but also with the technology out there. But eye tracking, that's our core.
And why do you think were the topics of AR, MR, I mean, we are talking about that in 10 years. Why is now the right time for them, or what do you expect in the market? Many companies invested billions already of dollars into that field.
I mean, I'm doing a lot of customer meetings, and the first thing I have to go through the learning curve of our customers saying, we tried this and that, and you know, having the tool is one thing, but then I have to invest another X 100,000 euros on the application side, and it doesn't feel right today. So expectations have been raised, but haven't been met so far. So I think we would do good by going if it's doable, what does make sense, and not making promises all over. It will happen, I'm sure, but not yet. So there's a lot of frustration in the industry. I have that 10 times a week. So it's really about giving them guidance again and giving them access to something that does make sense and is accepted by their workforce. And as workers' council and data, I mean, you know, the damage was done earlier, but still it's not yet solved. So people, these are the concerns that pop up regularly, like, yeah, but if you're recording everything, what's happening with the data as an example. So there are still some open thing, but I think a human-centered approach to make it easy for humans, that would solve a lot of issues also for our B2B industry out there. And B2C, I don't want to be bearish.
B2B, we are talking B2B, and there it's important also to convince the unions that it's really helpful, and it's a safety issue also sometimes to have both hands free while working. But we are talking about head-up displays. I mean, AR, MR, voice is perhaps the much more obvious area, and you have already plenty of thousands of pieces out there in the workforce and helping really in optimization of the workforce. Could you tell us a bit more about that you have a very famous form factor, I have to say, there's one thing, and this push-to-talk technology. So what is in your opinion, a major reason why you are so successful with your device scene? Regarding this push-to-talk technology,
right,
and let's say the way how you are communicating in a harsh environment.
So what makes it unique, for one thing, we also cater to the B2B customer base. Most of our customers currently are using large walkie-talkies, the cell phones, which in the industry, in a number of industries, a lot of the workforce has been lost to distractions. So the distractions of the cell phone, the traffic of radios having to be on a single channel and not providing, a platform that they can separate from. One of the major unique qualities of this device is its interoperability and connectivity to the Internet of Things. So being able to transmit information, receive information about your project, whatever your role is, the device is assigned to each individual based on their role. It's also embeddable, so you can embed it in helmets, clothing. We like to think if a person's wearing their uniform, then they're connected to their workspace. By being connected to their workspace, they have instant, relevant information quickly. Also, for first responders in terms of safety, a lot of the feedback we're getting from them when they ask the question, does it have GPS? Well, during an extraction and having to chase a blinking dot versus being able to speak to an individual, are you injured? Are you safe? The third floor just became the basement, so we're coming to get you. Can you tell us where you were last? Also, the size of it for rescue dogs, being able to take devices into individuals for public safety. Not only should every individual be wearing their communicator, but the public that's there, we're being asked to put these in stairwells now so that people can grab the device and be able to communicate when cell phones are not available to you. A lot of the telephone systems are going to VoIP. Almost all of the telephone systems are going to VoIP. Without power, we have no internet. Without internet, we have no communication. Therefore, with a 7-day battery life, which is also very unique to our device, an individual can use this for 5, 6, 7, 8 days before they have to actually charge it. Mm-hmm. We have a charging bay that it goes back to on a nightly basis, and then maybe someone else would use it. But 7 days battery life, 2.5 months standby time provides, I think, adequate time for an extraction and people to be communicated with to provide more safe workplace.
Well, what is the distance you could cover? What is the
distance
you could
is
cover
1.5
for
miles.
A team, for example?
The distance is 1.5 miles, which can be increased with our repeater system. It is a standalone system. Yep. So going back to interoperability, the current radios that are being used in the workforce, the P25 radio, the cell phone, we can now connect those individuals. So if I bring, if there's an occurrence, and when the first responders get there, they're going to patch in to Alpha Police, Alpha Fire, to start communicating with those people.
Mm-hmm. So it's at least a unified communication system plus the whole IoT spectrum, right? So this is, I believe, the very interesting topic on the whole device, because you could integrate it also in existing unified communication systems like from Cisco, right?
Correct.
Could you tell us a bit more about that?
So we're a solution partner with Cisco now. We're somewhat of a value add to their back end. Cisco has IPEX Instant Connect, and they utilize a Sonim phone, handheld smartphone, and this right here would be in the lapel, and they don't have to actually use the phone to speak. So it's push to talk. We have our own app as well, so we can communicate with cell phones through the Domino. We can communicate on a full duplex, just like we're on a telephone, or tri-full duplex, 3 individuals speaking at once. After that, it gets a bit crowded. So it's an exciting relationship with Cisco right now. It's been 3 years that they've chosen us and given us 8 SKUs in their ecosystem. So this is one of 5 solutions that we have.
But in theory, it's a platform which could be also enhanced by products like from Viewpointsystem or from Glass, right? I mean,
very much so. We have dental doctors that are using it now in the dentist industry. And they have, the biggest hurdle for us in dentistry was actually the cable, so the earpiece. They prefer to have a Bluetooth headset, but the Bluetooth headset only has a 7-hour battery life. Our device has 7 days, so now you're running around looking for that additional device. It also would be a disconnect in the workplace if this isn't working. It is HIPAA compliant as well, so it has AES 256 encryption, 4 layers of that, which provides for military and medical applications.
And medical applications, very important. Okay, okay. Before I'm coming to another questions to the gentleman here, I will give the audience also the chance to ask. I mean, you will have now the chance to ask to the major lead of Google Glass or to the developer of Viewpointsystem or to Rollts questions about the industrial area. Is there a question from the audience to our panel? Here we have one in the middle.
Thank you. I would like to ask Jay, I want to ask you about the penetration effort of glass and smart glasses into the market. As we know, consumers did not adopt smart glasses yet, and we see that all the smart glasses, they are now focusing on the enterprise market. And I would like to ask from your experience about the effort, about the success rate of engaging enterprise organizations with this technology, and what are the main objections that you see when you offer this technology to new organizations?
Yeah, so I think some of the comments that we've heard about adoption, we've certainly faced, and we've taken that into account. People want something that's comfortable. You don't look goofy wearing it. You don't feel goofy wearing it, and you can wear it for the time that you need it. So if I'm going to introduce a piece of technology into your workday, I need to be able to depend on it. So if it only lasts for 3 hours, and at 3-hour mark, the first 3 hours of my day, I'm really efficient because I got all these tools working for me, and the next 5 hours, I'm without one, or I have to charge it and then wait, or do any of these kinds of things. That's a pretty big thing. We've taken that into account, so our next generation device will have quick charging. It'll actually work for over 10 hours. That's how we've been testing it so far. It's significantly far more power capable and also compute capable. So that's one part, and that's a series of the major objections. I want something that's comfortable. So one of the ways that we address that is we worked with an industry-leading eyewear manufacturer and said, look, we need you to invent something new. Make it work with glasses that we all wear, but make it comfortable enough that you can actually balance some of the weight and make it small. And now we're at a point where it doesn't weigh very much more than a pair of larger glasses, so like a pair of Ray-Bans or something along those lines, a pair of Wayfarers. So I think those are the kinds of objections, and we've sort of tried to overcome them in interesting ways. But the big part of your question was, how are people using it, and what are they getting out of it, and what's the adoption of it? We've been very, very selective about the types of industries and the types of use cases that we go after, because we wanted to find ones that we could work with well and work through well. So customers like Boeing, for example, we started with smaller pilots, and now they're in production. So they're using that to do wire harnessing for a major portion of their planes. We had to show them that a piece of technology can dramatically improve the metrics that they care about, whether it be safety, whether it be the yield that they have, whether it be quality or quality control. So those are the kinds of things that made it possible for us to start moving and get that adoption moving faster. Now that we have one in each industry, we have major players, whether it's a major aerospace company or a major auto manufacturer, et cetera, others are coming and saying, we want to do similar things. And so I think that adoption curve is on the way up very, very quickly right now. We're at least seeing it. The other aspects of that are a lot of the manufacturing industries are using technology from a long time ago in their IT infrastructures. We go and we see software systems and infrastructure systems. I'm not going to name any, but people can very quickly think of examples of it that have been implemented 10, 15 years ago. And to bring in new technology like this, we have to help them update their IT infrastructure. So we've actually put a lot of effort over the last year in helping our partners get to that point. And they also care about things like security, data privacy, all of that I don't think the wearable industry has gotten to the point where now we have to start thinking about that and embed that into our product. So being HIPAA compliant and having 4 levels of encryption throughout your process is really important. 5 years ago, people did not think of that. And now people are actually very, very thoughtful about that, and they want that ensured that their hardware products are having that and their software systems are having that. So I think that's where we are now in terms of what needs to be overcome to have mass scale adoption.
We're coming into real system integration projects now.
Exactly.
Nothing else. Yeah. Next question here.
Hi, my question is related to safety. So as you look at, say, for example, driving, we all know that, the more opportunity there is for distraction, right, the more hazardous the activity you're doing becomes. So how do you find that balance, particularly in more hazardous workplaces, for example, a construction site, between bringing the consumer, the employee, relevant content, but not so much not in the form that it takes away from their concentration on the task at hand or hazards around them?
So whom is that for?
To see, no? It was, to all. I mean, see, or perhaps.
Yeah, it sounds a bit like very familiar to me. And that's the thing where eye tracking gives you a lot of additional information because you instantly see what is distracting. Secondly, you could use eye tracking. It's not about now Viewpointsystem, but in general, one of the major issues with augmented information is how immersive is the experience and how many times I have to refocus, like looking in the sceneries, getting back to the information. And that's not comfortable, that's distracting, and basically that's a barrier between the physical and the virtual world, and it's not really merging there. So one of the things you could imagine is that if your information is where your focal point is, at the depth you're looking at, it's a way more comfortable way how to interact. And it's simple stuff like if you walk, no information displayed. Because that was one of the major concerns of our customers. That guys, if they walk around and they have constantly, and that's the thing, if it's here, you're constantly distracted. So these are kind of very simple things that you have to overcome because we need more time as human beings to adapt to that. We are not used to have this kind of information all around of us. And I mean, if you're lost somewhere in a city and you need to go where, do you want to have a 3D animated plan of Manhattan or just a single arrow pointing you at the direction you should go to? And that's exactly, these are the challenges we have to overcome. Too much information is not good for us. We can't really cope with that information. So we have to make sure to have the right information at the right time, has been said, but in the right emotional and rational situative context. Then it's starting to work. And then you need more than you need other biometric information. But that's then really where it starts getting interesting. Today it's a bit clumsy, but we have to go with what's available, and we can't do as if there are no limitations. They are around. Nonetheless, it's already creating a lot of added value. But again, you need to make sure that you do not overwhelm the human being with information he can't cope with, because then he gets distracted, and then you have an HSE issue.
I'd like to add
No.
I'd like to add a small. We believe very similarly that you need to ensure that the content that you're putting in front of somebody is relevant at the time. Otherwise, it's going to distract them, and distractions cause safety issues. They cause performance issues. They cause cognitive focus issues. But so one addition that I personally believe in, and our team does, is that you have to ensure that your development ecosystem believes the same thing that you do. And sometimes you can give a platform, and this is something that, because we leverage Android, you can do a lot with Android. So our development tools and our guidelines and our UX guidelines actually ensure that the kind of behavior that we want actually happens. So for example, we have a very rudimentary eye on screen feature. So only if the wearer is looking at the screen is content showing up. So it doesn't distract. If I'm using a piece of heavy equipment and something shows up and I do that and I lose a finger, that's not going to happen, right? It's user-initiated behavior. So if I want to interact with it, I say, okay, Glass, I want to do something with it. So only when the user is ready, willing, and able to engage with it will that actually happen.
I want to give the lady here in front the chance to make the last question because we have 1 minute to go.
Thank you. My question is about privacy. Christian, you mentioned in your introduction that privacy is one of the main concerns for wearables at work. Are you concerned about the privacy of the data collected by your enterprise clients, about their employees? Is that something you think about protecting, or do you consider that to be more of an issue for your customers?
I'm happy to answer from our
Me
perspective.
too. I shortly start. I believe that the data belongs to the one creating the data. That's our approach. And then we discuss with the client what he's capable of doing, and then to find a solution that fits both sides. We are not intending to create data and to use it for other purposes. That's something that is up to the user or to the company which is using our glasses.
I think it's important that the union is integrated in the decisions. In the first step, you have to pick them up very early with the new technologies and to tell them that it's really a safety issue. It's helpful for the worker. If you come from the area of security and data protection, it's a wrong approach. I mean, you have to solve that in a way. It could be solved technology-wise. But I think it's very important to show them, okay, why are using voice control systems, why are using eye tracking control systems? The worker has two hands to work still, or to fix himself on a wherever area. And this is a helpful area, and there you have to work with the union very early, otherwise you will run against the wall. This is what we saw in the last 10 years. This is really a very important issue, but it could be solved, I have to say.